Thank you for watching USAWatchdog.com. I'm Greg Hunter. With us, a regular guest. I really can't have him on enough. He makes big predictions on big trends. He is the publisher of the Trends Journal. I'm talking about Gerald Celente. Gerald Celente, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Oh, I love being on USAWatchdog.com, and I want to thank you for all that you do, all the great people you have on, the information you put out there, and how you help put people on top of the trends and ahead of the news.
Well, you're the guy that does that, Gerald Celente, and I've been following you. And number one, you were one of the few people that predicted that Trump would win. I did it on my show. You also did it in your Trends Journal, documented that you said something like barring some unforeseen event, Trump's going to be president. And
yeah, we did. Yeah, we did that in May of 2016.
That's right. A lot of people were like, tee-hee, laugh, right? And so anyway, and then you said that the party after he was elected was going to be Trump's party, not the GOP is not going to run Trump. Trump's going to run the GOP. Apparently with Jeff Flake and Bob Corker and other people that are going to be out, in the Senate and other House representatives, looks like that prediction's coming true as well. I want to talk to you about the big things going on. China just got finished. That's a big trend for 2018. The economy is another big trend. Also, this whole deal with that's in the news now with Hillary Clinton and Paul Manafort and Donald Trump. They've got nothing on Trump for collusion. I mean, nothing. What they did with Paul Manafort is a tax scheme. There's no Russian collusion. Please tell me, do you think this trend that will reverse on the Democrats and Hillary Clinton? I'm sorry, I got a little cold. Hillary Clinton and two presidents are involved in this. That'd be Obama and Bill Clinton. Two attorney generals, Lynch and Holder. Two FBI directors, Mueller and Comey. Mueller knew all about this huge investigation in 2009. Many months, 3 or 4 year investigation where they got racketeering, bribery, and extortion, and the Russians trying to corner the uranium market, and we still sold them uranium one. My question to you, do you think this trend of an upset government, a government in turmoil, evildoers being brought to justice, is this going to continue in 2018?
Yeah, it's going to continue because we've never seen anything like this. The Russians are coming. And we were hearing that since, they were between Clinton and when she began to run against Trump. And it's never stopped. And we've never had an election like this where after the president gets elected, they tell you how much you should hate him. And that's been going on continually. I could give you an example. The day after Election Day, the headline story in the USA Today was new president goes into office with 74 or 76 lawsuits in front of him. So it wasn't, okay, you don't like this person, but it's our president, let's support him or her. So now going back to the Russian, there's not been one shred of evidence, period, paragraph, that Russia had anything to do with tapping into, hacking the DNC information into their computers. The person that also was hacked, his name is Podesta. You mentioned about Manafort. They're also bringing in Podesta's brother into this. As you pointed out, it has nothing to do with Trump. But what it's taking the people's minds off their major issues. It's also building that military-industrial complex even bigger. We got to watch out for those Russians. What the Russians have, their GDP is about, 7% of America's? Their military budget, Trump has increased ours $54 billion. Their whole budget is $48 billion. So what I'm saying is, you talk to the average person, they hate the Russians. It's working perfectly. Going back to the uranium deal, yes, it is going to fall back onto the Clintons. The hundreds of millions of dollars given to the Clinton Foundation by Russians as they did the uranium deal. Those are facts. We don't see anything happening to Trump. And when you look, again, I'm not a Trump fan. As you well know, I'm nobody's fan. I'm a political atheist. I call things the way they are, not what I want them to be or what I believe in. So, going back to the Trump, we are now going into, Greg, almost a year into the Trump rally. That's the other thing. I've been on your show for years, known you for years. I was negative on the stock markets until Trump got elected. What happened? We did a 180 within a week after he got elected and say, no, this rally is real. Because go back to the eve of Election Day. As Trump starts to win, the Dow futures fall over 800 points. And then bam, a reversal. Because he's very pro-business and big business. Again, I'm not pro-multinationals. I'm not pro where the tax breaks are going. But it's good for the markets and that sector. So that's what we look at. Going back to, no, look at consumer confidence right now. It's at a the year 2000 high. So the media could do all they want. Yes, Trump knows what's going on over there. They're going to be going after the Clintons in 2018. This whole thing is going to reverse. There is absolutely not one shred of proof that Russia had anything to do with hacking into the DNC. And just to tie it all together, hey, Greg, some of those JFK assassination papers came out that we, the stupid little people, aren't allowed to see after 54 years. But what do they show in it? How about all the wiretapping the Americans have been doing everywhere? Hey, remember when everybody hated Snowden because he reported that the NSA is spying on every damn thing that we do? Oh, but the Russians hacked into the DNC, I tells you. And they showed what a crook and a thief and a disgusting bunch of people that are involved in the Clinton Foundation. Yes, your foundation. How about its payoffs for all the dirty deals that you've done? Oh, no, but we can't talk about that. All we have to say is that the Russians hacked it. Yeah, what did they hack? They hacked into what a hack job we've been getting from Slick Willie and the rest of the Slimers involved in them. So going back again, putting the pieces together, you got the JFK files coming out. America's spying on everybody. NSA spying on everybody, and not one shred of evidence that the Russians hacked into the DNC or Podesta's files.
And you know they never got the servers, the DNC servers. They had a third party do the investigation. That's like saying, oh no, and FBI, don't investigate this Las Vegas shooting. We'll have a third party do it. And Mueller never got the servers. Mueller had
So going back to answer your question, yes, we don't see Trump being impeached. What are they going to put in, Pence? You know, that's the other thing. All these little clowns like this guy over there in I forgot his name over in California, starts with an S, and he's given $10 million to impeach
Steyer.
Yeah. How come none of these billionaires give 1 penny for peace? Whatever happened to peace and love? Not one. We didn't. You know, I don't want to mention the name, but his name begins with a B and ends with a T, and have a buff in the middle of it. I rent to his son one of my buildings on the most historic Four Corners. I had Ralph Nader, Cindy Sheehan, Dr. Robert Thurman, Uma Thurman's father, launched Occupy Peace. I didn't get a penny from the billionaires for OccupyPeace.us. But all these people are willing, the Soroses, they're all willing to give it for more hate and destruction, but not a penny for peace.
Good. Excellent point. Let's move on. The economy 2018. You said it may slow down. You talked about the Trump rally when he got in. My friend Gregor Manarino said the same thing, which I was surprised because, you know, we have a lot of debt. There are a lot of problems. Houses are really expensive. Some people call this the biggest bubble in history, or bubbles everywhere, or depending on what expert you like. There's a lot of bubbles with all this money printing going on. 2018, your trend for 2018 for the economy.
For the economy, we see a slowdown. And the reason the slowdown we see coming is, first of all, GDP growth is going much better than most people thought. But by the time it averages out, we'll probably be around 2.8. That's not that hot. But the other thing is where interest rates are going up. That's the bet. The bet for the futures markets is that interest rates will go up another 25 basis points in December. So we believe by the second quarter of 2000, you're going to start seeing a slowdown because the only thing that's pumped up the markets are the cheap money. You look at merger and acquisition activity. Just on, what day is this? Tuesday. On a Tuesday, it just was announced that another $20 billion in M&A activity. You go back last week, what, $88 billion deal with CVS and an insurance company. So you look at the stock buybacks. What just happened recently? You saw Walmart stock, boost, and all of a sudden there's a $20 billion buyback. So let's make this clear, everybody. These stock buybacks make those billionaires richer. End of story. So now with interest rates going up, money becomes more expensive. That's going to cause a slowdown. This is going to be the fish rots from the head down. The markets are going to melt from the head down. The head being the very rich. 96% of all the top 10% of the economy owns 96% of the stock. The rest of the middle class, the 52% within that own it, only own about $15,000 on average. That other 10% owns on average about $350,000 each. So this thing rots down, and we're seeing it in our research. It's going to fall from the top. You're looking right now at
wait. So hold on. I just want to get this in. When you say fall from the top, you're saying that in this crash, as opposed to 2008, I just want to make sure I get this right. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
No, yeah, go on.
You brought this up in the pre-interview, if I heard it right, and this is what you said. You said, 2008, the little guy got creamed. I mean, the housing 2008, 2009, the little guy got creamed. This crash, the big guy's going to get creamed. Would you explain that to me? This is what you said.
Yeah, that's it. You go back again, go to the dot-com crash, bubble bursting. Go back to 2008. Remember all those subprime mortgages?
Yep.
So it wiped out the middle and lower classes. Go back to the dot-com bust. Everybody was investing. Now all the investment is at the top. And the top is the one that's going to fall. When they fall, the bottom will feel it, but more psychologically than in their pocket. Because it's the bigs that are going to fall. As I was going to also say in our research, you look at the tops in the condominium market, in the housing market, the houses over 1.5 million. That market's slowing down dramatically. You go into the rich retail sectors around the country, Chicago, New York, San Francisco, you'll see a lot of for rent signs because the big multinationals that used to be there that are no longer making the money at the top that they were are closing down. The rents are so high that they can't fill them up with the average used to be retailer. So we're seeing the pressure from the top falling already. So we're calling this a stage 1 recession. That's our top trend for 2018. We've never seen one like this before. So it's going to start melting down from the top. How far down will it go? We're looking for a 10% correction in the markets. We're not looking for a crash at this point. It depends how far it melts. The other thing to look at are the emerging markets, because when interest rates go up, the dollar gets stronger. They have tens of trillions of dollars in corporate and government debt borrowed in cheap dollars. Dollar gets stronger, their economies go down because they have a huge debt burden. Number 3, the Trump rally is worldwide. So if the starts unraveling very heavily in the U.S., there goes Japan, there goes Europe, and there goes China. But the difference with China is they're in control of the whole deal. They'll do whatever they have to do to stay on top.
Would you say, am I getting this right? Would you say the next crash will be a crash for the rich?
Yes. It's not going to bring down the rich. It's going to take, okay, so Bezos won't be worth $90 billion. Maybe he'll only be worth $65.3 billion. So the people, it's going to be the bottom part of the rich that feels the pressure the most. But again, I'm not making these numbers up. 8 people, all right, got more dough in the world than half the world's population combined. Between 2009, when Obama bragged, you know, folks, I created all those jobs as he was campaigning for Hillary Clinton in 2016. Yeah, you created all those jobs, but according to the Harvard-Princeton study, what are they? 94% are temporary jobs. 78% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. So when the top crashes down, they're not going to fall down, but it's going to be a psychological hit to the economy. And that's what brings it down to a stage 1 recession.
Let's talk about China. This got hardly any press at all, and you brought it up in the pre-interview, and you said, "Pooh, China." I watched everything on China. I read everything. I looked at it. I knew this 5-year. They do a 5-year plan every 5 years, and he said, "What came out of China was scary." And so you're saying that 2018, China is going to play a big role in 2018. Please explain.
Well, they had the old Silk Road, right? Now they're bringing it back, and they're calling it, the Belt Road. They're connecting it. And what does that mean? It's the Yellow Silk Road. And they are buying up the world. You listen to Xi's speech. We're going to be a top military modernized nation by 2035. 2035. They're not in a rush. They're not in a rush to go military. Here's some numbers to put it into context. When China joined the World Trade Organization, 2 weeks after 9/11, when no one was paying attention, their middle class comprised a little less than 5%. Now, it's 35%. You're looking at China. The business of China is business. The business of America is war. We're going to have the biggest military. We're going to kick the shit out of ISIS. Great. Knock yourself out, man. These cats got a different trip. You listen to Xi's speech. He's talking about prosperity. He's talking about harmony for the nation. He's talking about cultural advancements and beauty. Think about that. When do you ever hear a politician? So here's the difference. Politicians speak like that. China, it's an inside-out economy. This is an outside-in economy, meaning that the business of China's government is to run business. They're setting the stage. In America, we get the politicians that are basically, they get paid with bribes and payoffs that little boys and girls like to call campaign contributions, and they're getting the pressure from the outside. So they get all this pressure from different corporations. They don't have a unified vision of growth. China does. China and India are going to be the new powers in the years ahead. So what we're telling our readers and our clients is put your focus on China. Sell China, buy China. Look at everything that they're doing because they're going in a very different direction. Yeah, I know about the $40 trillion in debt. China's greatest fear, by the way, isn't America. It's their own people. They have literally hundreds of thousands of demonstrations a year from people that are complaining about wages and want better life conditions. They're doing everything they can to quell that by bringing in more growth to them.
I do have to say one thing. I mean, USA Watchdog could not exist in China. The first time I would criticize Xi Jinping,
Poof, gone.
I'd be poof. I'd be in a gulag somewhere. So there are some good points about America.
Oh no, I'm not talking. I'm just talking about business here.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yeah, I'm
all
not
right.
talking about going. It's not my trip.
I understand.
I'm
But
just talking
China
about-
is a communist country.
It's a communist country, centrally ruled. Here's the deal, and this is where we're going. End of story.
Okay, good deal. All right, good deal. I want to go on now to
Before you go on, let me just go back.
All right.
We're talking about 2018 in politics and how the United States is so divided.
Yes.
Matter
Oh,
of
yeah.
fact-
Please do.
Yeah,
Let's come back to that.
Because that's one of the trends to take advantage of. If we're telling our corporate clients, sell unity. Remember that thing I liked, the world of Coke, dun, 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 at a time when the nation was divided. And not unity to fight another side, but unity to bring us back as a culture, as Americans. The people that do that, even the politicians that do it, the companies that do it, will find strong growth opportunities. So that's one of our other top trends for 2018 is unify. Do it in music, do it in style, and do it in culture. The people want it. They don't want to be divided. Yes, a few people do. That's their trip, but not for the whole nation.
Which brings me to the Fourth Estate. You say the Fourth Estate is getting creamed, and Gannett stock was at 40% lower. It's now 40% lower than it was in the first or third or one of the first trading day of 2016. The kickoff to the presidential election. They were negative every day. I don't think I ever saw a positive front page story on candidate Trump. But anyway, their stock is down somewhere in the neighborhood of 40%. Gannett, the USA Today people. And you're saying that I remember also too. This is while I was still working at CNN, and you were saying I don't know why any reporter wouldn't go out and buy their name, John Doe or Greg Hunter or Gerald Celente.com, and then start their own business because you don't need the networks anymore. I want to talk about what the press is doing to Donald Trump. They are at war. They are at war. They will lie. They will omit. They are totally at war. What's going on with the Fourth Estate that apparently is losing money over trying to knock Trump out of the box?
Well, again, look at who created the monopolies in the Fourth Estate. And who
Bill
was-
Clinton.
Right. You were there. I mean, the 1996 Federal Communications Act, where now we have 6 companies controlling over 90% of the media. So as I look at it, I call it payback. They're paying back the Clintons to go after the Trumps because the Clintons gave them all this sweet deal and money so they could have what they have. So I don't know if that's what's going on, but when people ask me, that's what I think it is. It's just, it's very clear. I mean, this was never allowed before. We don't have a Fourth Estate. We have a bunch of multinationals that own print and news and broadcast media. So it's not at all a free press. It's a controlled press. And the control, I believe, and why they're anti-Trump is because of who gave them what they have. And again, it's payback.
I just want to add this one point. This whole New York Times story, I think, where they had the Comey memo. Could you imagine walking in as a reporter? Me, I just walked in. I thought, how would they get that approved? Because reporters have to get everything approved. Period. The end. I go to my boss and say, I got a story that will show the president committed obstruction of justice. Really? Who's your source? I say, I can't tell you. Then he says, okay, what else you got? I got a document. Great, we're in business. Let's see it. I don't have it. They're going to read it to me on the phone. You're green lighted. Now, if I went in there and said any other president of Ford Motor Company, president of General Motors, president of General Electric, or the president of Tasty Freeze, they would say, are you nuts? Get out of my office. But no, not the New York Times. Green lighted. And you know what? We never have seen that Comey memo.
No.
Never have seen it. Never has surfaced.
Well,
so are you saying that do you think the media can bring it out? Do you think the media, the mainstream press, can pull it out? They don't seem to even want to. They don't even seem to want to be fair at all. Can they pull it out, or what's the big trend for the media in 2018?
Well, it's going to continue to decline and lose confidence. Look at the current polls. The people are the nation again wants to be united. I'm telling you, this is a very important trend. And you know who they're blaming the divisiveness on? The media. So the average person sees it. But, you know, dogs don't make cats. They're not going to change. You're talking about the New York Times, the paper of record. I call it the toilet paper of record, because that's all it's good for. And it's one piece of propaganda after the next. You're just talking about one little thing. Hey, you know that Saddam Hussein, man, that guy was cooking up yellow cakes in aluminum tubes, you know? He was ready to blow us up with weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda and Al Capone and anybody else. Any other crap I could make up because I'm a low-life little person. I'm a prostitute. I get paid to put out. That's all it is. They're paid to put out, and they're putting out propaganda. And what they've done is they've built their digital subscription base. Capisce? That's all they've done. Look at the numbers, Greg. As soon as they started hating Trump and selling more hate about the Russians, boom, their digital subscriptions started to increase. Same with the Washington Post, owned by Bezos. Again, $90 billion that guy's worth. And here, you call this capitalism? How about we're going to bring in Amazon, their new headquarters, and we're going to give a guy worth $90 billion bucks, $7 billion in tax breaks to come here. What tax breaks? You mean taxes on the people to give more money to Bezos so he could create jobs that pay the grand total on average of $13.50 an hour, $28,000 a year. So what I'm saying, put it all together. Who owns the Washington Post? Who's behind the New York slime? It's one big rigged game. People should be outraged. This is not capitalism, it's fascism. The merger of state and corporate powers. Hey, too big to fail? No, Celente, they're too big to jail too. Let's call it what it is. The country's going down because it's become a neo-feudal society. Different rules for the political nobility and the economic elite.
And the press is basically helping them do that, basically, by what they leave out, what they lie about.
It's not the press. Again, they're prostitutes. They get paid to put out by their corporate johns. Simple, man. Look, I know people in the media, and you do too. I used to be on everybody, from Oprah to the Today Show. They don't want to hear what I have to say.
Even if you're right, they don't want to hear what you have to say.
They don't want to hear it. And I know people in the media, in different top places, they cannot say what they want to say. They're friends of mine. So it's not...
Wait. Let's drill down on that. I mean, without naming names, what do they tell you? What are these
They tell me that when they did this piece on that, they got called in and said, don't do that again. And don't keep bringing that up. And then some of them lost their jobs. They kept them on, but they took away, prime shows from them.
You can talk to, I think your editor is from USA Today, one of your top editors.
Our CEO of Gerald Celente was the editor-in-chief of Gannett News Service.
Ask him how these people at the top of Gannett can keep their jobs with a 40% stock decline.
Well, again, he's got all that stock in this. He's lost all that dough.
Yeah.
But what happened, he'll tell you, back in the day when he was there, he said, we didn't get any pressure at all. The whole thing has changed. They never came in and said, don't do that story.
I used to work for Gannett. It was a wonderful company. They had awards. I did stuff on, in the 50th television market. I did a story about how dangerous certain airbags were. Anyway, they would never let me do that story today. And it was a huge story, and it was proven correct. It was Chrysler minivans had a terrible airbag. They've all been fixed now. I mean, they're Chrysler, General Motors, all the other. Honda was the best. Honda, you had very few deaths with Honda. Anyway, I digress. I want to get into the JFK papers. They released most of them, and it was enough to have a former Surgeon General say there was a second shooter. And you have a personal story about John Connally, who was in the car with JFK and the day of the assassination in Dallas. And tell me what your thoughts are about the release of these papers. I mean, they keep telling us it's just one guy with a gun, but it's all top secret.
Yeah, it's a disgrace that we the people are not allowed to see this. What are they hiding? And then what you did come out also, look at all the assassinations and assassination attempts on leaders around the world. What kind of country is this? What right do we have to kill somebody else that we don't like what they're doing in their nation if they're no threat to us? How about calling it murder? But that gets brushed over. So we will, don't talk about that. We could kill anybody that we want for any reason, be they drone strikes or assassinations. But going back to it, what came out, again, is that they're holding back a lot of the information. And it appears that, again, a guy, 6 stories up, shooting about 250 feet away with a gun, I think that I've read, 1890s Italian gun. And he shoots these guys in a couple of seconds, and he's dead. Kennedy's dead. I mean, that's quite a marksman for a guy that was not known to be a marksman. So, of course, there are a lot of questions that aren't answered. My story at Connally, I don't know if you could see that photo at the end over there, but the one under my Uncle Giuseppe over there, who was a Bassaliere in Italy, that's me, John Connally, and his wife, Nellie, in front of the book depository, the Texas School Book Depository. Actually, that's the side where Oswald allegedly was. We were parked out in front, and he told a story that day. 1992, he wanted to meet me because in my book, Trend Tracking, I had forecast that the next election, the 92 election, would have a third party. And for some reason, I mentioned Ross Perot as the type of political maverick.
You were correct.
And so he wanted to meet me to find out how I knew that. The fellow that put it together, his name was John J. Hooker from Tennessee. Family very prominent down there. I flew down to Tennessee the night before, and in his penthouse up on top of there's pictures of Hooker with the Kennedys at Kenny Bunkport, with Johnson, with Humphrey, with everybody. So anyway, we fly out the next morning to Dallas, and we meet with Pat Cadell was there, the pollster, and a woman by the name of Rama Fox, who was Larry King's girlfriend at the time. It was Hooker that got Perot on Larry King to announce he was running for president, and Cadell was involved in the polling, and I was there because Connally wanted to meet me. We're having lunch, and after lunch, Hooker says, "Well, John, limousine's waiting outside. You ready?" He said, "Let me go get Nellie." We pile into the limousine, and we go to the Texas School Book Depository. It's their first time back since the assassination.
Wow.
They didn't even go back when they made that, a historical site. And he started telling the story of what happened that day. And he said, "I heard a gunshot." He said, I looked over to my right. He said, "I knew it was a gunshot because I've been hunting since I'm a little boy." He said, "I was wearing a dark blue suit that day, and I was scrunched up into the jump seat." They used to have those jump seats that came down in those days. It wasn't like the big limos you have. And he said, "I was holding my Stetson hat on my knee." He said, "I looked over to my left, and there were brains on my shoulder." He said, "I knew there were brains because my daddy was a butcher." And then he goes on to tell how he said, "I felt a pounding on my back." He went like this, and his face distorted. And he said he went flying forward, and when the bullet ripped through his back, and Nellie threw herself on top of him. You could see that. So now remember, his hand's over here. It compresses the hand and the knee. Nellie on top of him. That's what saved his life. Because when his lung got blown out, if the air went in through his lung, he would have suffocated. They get to Parkland Hospital, he said, in about 12 minutes. He said what happened was there was this doctor on break. And he sees the motorcade come screaming in. He rushes down there. And in all the confusion, this doctor is the guy that works on Connolly, and he happened to be a thoracic surgeon.
Ha.
So we go outside. We took a couple of pictures, out there, and people, from nobody there, all of a sudden people came. He was very kind to everybody. And we're going back in the car. I'm sitting across from him. I'm looking at his hands, and he has these big purple splotches on them. And there's a photo of my father back there, may he rest in peace. I had a going-away party for him. He was dying of asbestos poisoning. And my father got it from working in the shipyards during World War II. And they had him on heavy doses of prednisone. So I saw this in Connolly's hands, and you see the picture of Connolly, he's hunched over a bit. So I said, how are you feeling? Do you have any lung problems? He said, yeah. He said, I'm getting some adhesions, I have some other problems, but they have me on doses of prednisone. I said to Hooker later that day, I said, Connolly's going to die soon. I said, I've seen this movie before. Connolly was speaking like a dying man that day. They both said that they heard 3 gunshots. That's all they kept saying, him and Nellie. We told the warrant we heard 3 gunshots. But what happened was, as we're going back into the Anatole Hotel, Connolly stops me and he said, I read your book, Trend Track. He says, it's a fine piece of work. He said, I know your heart's in the right place. He said, but you don't have a clue what's going on. And neither do the American people. Because if they did, there'd be a revolution in this country. Now, this is coming from a man that was the Democratic governor of the time when he got shot. That was also Richard Nixon, the Republican's Treasury Secretary. This is the guy that took us off the gold standard. These are the people that made the deal with the petrodollar. I'm talking about China before, just to divert. Now they're not using petrodollars. They're buying Russian oil, which is their biggest supplier, with yuan. But you could cash in the yuan for gold. The same with Iran and with Saudi Arabia. And that's another reason why China is going to go further. Because if the petrodollar dies, you could start bringing your dollars to Walmart in a wheelbarrow, because that's what they'll be worth. But going back to Connolly, when I met him at lunch and listening to him talk, my first emotion was embarrassment. I was ashamed of myself for prejudging someone that I only heard on the media define him. Every word he spoke was a sentence, and every sentence a paragraph, and I was cutting off everybody else so he could keep talking. Because what this guy was saying, in those days, I wish I had a tape recorder. So to me, what he said about the nation, the corruption is embedded throughout it. And we're seeing more and more of it, and that's why I believe they won't release the true facts of the assassination, because they're not telling us just how corrupt they really are.
Your thought was Connolly, John Connolly, the then governor of Texas, did not think it was Lee Harvey Oswald. He did not hear all the shots come from the same place, is what you're saying.
Yeah, well, all I'm telling you what he said. He said, I looked over to my right. I knew it was a gunshot because I'm hunting since I'm a little boy.
Well, the shots would have been behind him.
His right was the grassy knoll.
Ah, got it. Did not come from the book depository, is what you're saying.
Right. He didn't say I turned my back.
Right. The Surgeon General said that it was another shooter from somewhere else. This came out in the papers, which I thought was a huge bomb. I want to come back. One last thing, being you brought it up. And people are going to want to ask me, why don't you ask about the petro-yuan? And you just said that if the petro-yuan takes hold, that people will take their dollars into Walmart and wheelbarrows because that's what they're going to be worth. Tell me about what you see for gold, the dollar, and the yuan.
If China keeps remember, Russia and China have now become big trading partners. Russia's the biggest producer of oil in the world, and they sell more of it to China than anybody. China's buying Iranian oil with the sanctions because they can't deal in dollars. And now they're telling Saudi Arabia, who the United States made the deal with the petrodollars, that they'll only pay for their oil in yuan. It's very significant because what kept the dollar alive as the world reserve currency is that all the oil being traded is being bought in dollars But now if you're saying you don't have to pay for it in dollars and buy it in dollars anymore, we'll pay for it now a currency, then the Federal Reserve, that's as Federal Express, as your listeners well know, it's just a bunch of private banksters. They can't keep printing up all the money that they want. They won't have it out there as a reserve currency. You will see inflation skyrocket in this country. Gold will hit like a Bitcoin high. And we believe it's starting to happen. And that's why we still see gold as a reserve currency of the real true type, because it's been a currency since been writing the written word, and there's limited supply of it. And then going back to what will happen as the dollar declines. So right now, gold is in a trading range. It has to hit over 1,400. We've been saying this now for 3 years. It has to be solid over 1,400, 1,450, 1,480, 1,460, and then it spikes. But the downside risk, as we see it, is nominal. It costs $1,1100 to $1,200 to pull it out of the ground. So it's not going to go down more than $100, $150 at the worst, which is no downside risk as we see it. And I don't give financial advice for a long-term investment. So that's how we see gold.
You think gold will be 2018, the trend for gold, silver, platinum, precious metals, you think 2018 is going to be the year for gold and silver?
Not immediately, because as interest rates go up and the dollar gets stronger, gold prices get pushed down lower. So in the short term, as the readjustment takes place, gold will have a little weakness in it, because the stronger the dollar, the more expensive gold, and there's an opportunity cost for holding gold as interest rates go up. So now, but going back to when we see the big corrections start to happen and the fish starts rotting from their head down financially, then you're going to see gold start pushing back up again. So gold starts going back up again as the markets start going down.
Okay. And one last thing, you've said this before, and I'm going to bring this up. And it's I know I've gotten off the track here. I've had a lot of stuff to ask you about. But you have said before, when all else fails, they'll take you to war. And with all these derivatives, one of my guests, I think it was Chris Martin, said, you got to ask yourself why they won't let the market correct 2%. I think it's the derivatives. I think there are hundreds of trillions of derivatives, if not thousands of trillions of derivatives that are trying to stabilize the market. And if they lose control, and you have said this is your term, when all else fails, they take you to war. Is war in any kind of trend for 2018?
Yes, particularly in the Middle East. And you're seeing it with going on in the Kurdish regions. You're seeing it still going on in Libya. Libya is a free-for-all. Yemen has exploded. We're seeing it in Iraq, as I mentioned, and Syria. And also the biggest fear that we have is a war with Iran. And they keep pushing more and more for it. They're calling Iran the world's greatest sponsor of terrorism. Come on. You know who's the biggest sponsor of terror? How about Saudi Arabia? How about the Arab League? How about Americans, what they did to Libya? Who did they support to overthrow Gaddafi? And the other one, the wild card, is North Korea. And again, we're only looking at the facts here. You know what the GDP of North Korea is?
Hit me.
$18 billion.
Oh, boy. Rounding error for the U.S. government.
Yeah, that's not what I mentioned. What's Gates worth, Buffett worth, Bezos worth? They're not a threat to anybody. They're fearful of the United States. Keeps doing these massive maneuvers off their shores. They got 30,000 troops on their border, and they saw what the United States did to Gaddafi and Hussein. They've made this clear. They're going to do the same thing to us. So but we don't have a fear of a war with North Korea, because if there's a war against North Korea, say goodbye to South Korea. It was nice knowing you, Japan. So you're going to see a mass slaughter go on. We don't think that's going to happen. But we're concerned about a buildup of war in the Middle East, particularly with Iran.
Gerald Celente, thanks for the preview of your big trends that are coming up. I know you got a lot more to work on. You are the publisher of the Trends Journal. It's trendsresearch.com. Is that the right website?
That's the right website.
Yeah, Trends. I'll put all that stuff in the afterward. Gerald Celente. Wow, I took all kinds of notes. I was really excited about it. I called you about, I don't know, 2 hours early, and you were like, no, this is at 1 o'clock. Anyway, but anyway, wow, you didn't let us down. I mean, this is you've done a lot of great interviews. This is a winner, my friend. Lots of big trends you named off for 2018. I follow your work, and I've been seeing these big, huge trends, and you've been identifying these big boing, boing, more so than any other year. Other than that Donald Trump winning the election was a huge call for you, and a good one, might I add, and also a big call that Trump is going to run the party, which is another winner call. But anyway, I digress. Gerald Celente, publisher of the Trends Journal, thank you for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
And Greg, thank you for all that you do in having USA Watchdog to give people the information that they need that they're not getting from the prostitute media.
Thank you very much, Jill. You're very kind. Thanks for coming on USAWatchdog.com, my friend.
Thank you.